Hello and welcome to another episode of Exploring Standards. I'm your host, Jess, and today I'm really excited to be joined today by the Managing Director and Director of Certificates at CIRQ, Juliana Wood. Juliana, how are you today?
I'm great, Jess. How are you?
I am really, really good, thank you. And I'm really excited to have you on the podcast. Today, we are talking about the International Standard for Market Opinion Social Research, which is ISO 22252. Now, there's so much going on in this industry at the moment.
So much. Yeah, so much.
So much. So I'm really excited to get into today's episode and really get into those juicy bits. But before we really get into that, as always, I'd like to ask my guests to tell my listeners a little bit about yourself, a little about CIRQ, and your role at CIRQ as well, please.
Sure. So CIRQ is it's an acronym. It stands for the Certification Institute for Research Quality, and we've been around since about 2009 when we were established. And we started certifying clients really around 2011, 2012 to an earlier version of ISO 20252, and then another version of a standard that was specific to market research called ISO 26362. And then a few years later, we picked up, again, kind of watching the trends, what was going on in market research, we picked up ISO 27001 for information security. And so it's been kind of a wild ride the last, like 13, 14 years now. But so CIRQ is actually, it's a wholly owned subsidiary of the Insights Association. And so the Insights Association is the leading US market research professional member organization. And the association has about 12,000 members. And so being that we're a subsidiary of this professional member organization, we can really target and serve our members with certifications that are incredibly valuable and specific to the industry. So, what's really cool about ISO 20252, what's happening right now, is that, and we'll talk about it in a few minutes, but just kind of some of the changes in the industry. And one thing I'm particularly proud of is that being, again, a certification body sort of nestled within a professional association specific to market research, our auditors come out of market research. So they have been researchers in their own right. And so they kind of speak the language of the clients that they audit. So yeah.
That's amazing. I think knowing that industry specifically just must give you that edge as well, and must give your clients as well that confidence that someone who's coming in. Yeah, absolutely.
It absolutely does. Yeah. And another thing that gives our clients great confidence in what we do are our accreditations. So we're accredited, and this is a mouthful, but bear with me. The shorthand is ANAB, but I know some people kind of get a little itchy about calling something by an acronym. It's word salad, right? Letter salad. But it's ANSI, which is the American National Standards Institute National Accreditation Board. So if you think about accrediting bodies around the globe, you've got UKAS in the UK, you've got JASANS in Australia. Here we've got ANAB. And why that's important is that, in a nutshell, we don't do anything that we don't make our clients do, meaning CIRQ also goes through annual assessments. We happen to be dual accredited. So our ISO 20252 program is accredited, as is our ISO 27001 program. So what that does is that gives our clients confidence that we've gone through the same impartial and rigorous third-party audit that they have to go through with us.
Yeah, that must be so reassuring for your clients as well, knowing that you've also been through that process. So obviously, you are based in the United States, as you mentioned. And obviously, I know the standard is incredibly popular there, but that's not only where you work.
No, not at all. So we're tiny but mighty. I say it all the time. So CIRQ is actually, because we're accredited, we're global. We have clients pretty much everywhere. We've got clients in Canada, the US, a couple down in South America, across the EU, the UK, Asia, Australia. We even have a client in Mongolia, and I'm very, very proud of that. And we just, again, I think it speaks to not only our level of expertise when it comes to the market research standard, but our ability to help clients kind of get where they need to be in their markets, right? And fulfill their own client demands. So yeah, it's pretty cool. I mean, it's pretty cool that, like I said, we're tiny but mighty.
I think also it shows just how incredibly popular this standard is, and how important it is, the fact that you
exactly.
have such a range.
Exactly.
So let's get into our standard then. So
Yeah, sure.
obviously we've been calling it ISO 20252 or 20252, but let's just shorten it down for today. Otherwise we're going to be doing lots and lots of things. We'll just say
Right.
252. Could you give us a brief overview?
Sure. So in a nutshell, it is the global market research standard. It has been around for, gosh, over about, in some way, shape, or form, it's been around for about 25 years. And it has its origins actually in ISO 9001, which is the global quality standard. So that kind of forms the foundation when it talks about making sure that an organization has the pieces in place for a quality system. So in this case, for the standard, we call it a research process management system. So it forms the foundation of, again, how clients do what they do. And then that's part of the standard. And the other part of the standard has to do with requirements for the services that they provide their clients. And so we're talking about market research methodologies. And the standard in its current form, 2019, it is highly customizable, meaning that every client that comes in, no matter if it's a 2-person research firm or 1,000 folks, across a geography, they all have to do, the core framework, but then they can customize those methodologies, again, that reflect the services that they provide their clients. So again, the standard as a document may seem a little intimidating, but when you get into it, it is, again, customizable. And I always tell clients that come to me to never forget, the standard wasn't created by a bunch of experts who have nothing to do with market research. The standard was created and is currently administered and managed by, I sit on that committee, TC 225, by industry experts from around the world. So you have folks that are researchers, academics, certification bodies, all those people coming together and coming up with requirements that are specific to what market research does and the services it provides the industry and clients and consumers and all that good stuff. Yeah.
I love that, because I know that standards can seem quite intimidating when you first
you hear that word and it's just, it's just like standard and you're like, blah, compliance. But when you get into it, I also tell folks, I'm like, don't think of it like, this is a voluntary standard, right? It's not a standard that has to do with, like, if you think about like an electrical standard, right? So your light doesn't short out and cause a house fire. That's a different type of a standard. This is a voluntary standard. And again, it finds its basis in quality. So there's this constant effort towards improvement. You're always kind of like, how can we do things better? How can we streamline? How can we have reproducible projects and documentation and training and all that good stuff. So it's a constant evolution towards, kind of a perfect, and some companies get there and are fantastic, and others, they're constantly chipping away and getting better and better as they get more mature into the standard. So yeah.
What better incentive to do a standard than to want to continuously improve? Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly.
I like the way that you changed the frame of mind there from just being something, oh, I'm going to do this, to actually, this is how it's going to help my business.
Yeah, so exactly. Right.
So the standard at the moment is currently very popular. There's been a big push in that. Why is this happening at the moment?
That is such a great question. So the standard, like I said, it's been around for a while. It's a voluntary standard. And, we have had companies have been certifying to the standard, a previous version of it, since about 2011. So there are companies around the world that have either certified to it or they have been following it, adhering to it for many, many years. But one of the biggest current issues that's kind of happening right now is sort of this problem around data quality, right? And that has to do with a part of market research having to do with surveys and samples and getting, quality data. And we're very lucky that, and it was just kind of like this perfect timing, the perfect storm, if you will, from bad things come good things, that a major brand, Procter & Gamble, basically took a stand late last year and said, boom, what we want to do for a segment of our vendors, this is not a company-wide proclamation at this point, for a segment of our vendors, what we want is for them to move towards certification to ISO 20252. Again, to establish a quality-based research process management system, and then establish requirements that have to do with those methodologies that are in the annexes. And the whole point here really is to sort of set the playing field, so you have everybody sort of starting from the same place, as far as you've got a third party coming in, assessing their system and making a declaration, a certificate, and saying, yeah, we've evaluated this system. It is performing as it should be against the requirements of 20252. And then I think what that's going to ultimately do is, level the playing field and raise it even, and maybe kind of, slough off those folks that maybe aren't the best actors in this space, and really elevate those that are doing it the right way. And, if our little piece of the pie is any indication, a lot of companies are very interested in getting this certification. They want to do the right thing.
Yeah, we've noticed that over here as well. Like it definitely has been like that. And I think as well, this is the beginning of it. I think, we've discussed
it
before.
Is.
Yeah.
It is. It's been kind of piecemeal over many years, where you have a company that will pick it up and it really becomes part of their culture, part of their organizational culture. And for folks, like I said, we have some companies that have been certified for a decade plus, and they just live and breathe. And they are so proud of this. And I think what sort of they are well positioned now to be well in front of, this requirement. But then you have all these others that are like, yeah, we want to do the right thing. And again, level that playing field. And I think that if this all goes as I suspect that it might, you'll see over the next 3 to 5 years, a huge wave of others following Procter & Gamble's sort of, their mandate. They're a thought leader right now in this space. Very few brands have taken this stand, but hopefully others will follow. And then it'll just overall improve the industry, not just here in the US, but internationally. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's exciting. That's really exciting.
It is. It is.
So then how does 252 relate to industry bodies?
Right. So each, I shouldn't say each, most, like 99%, country, have a market research or an insights or a data analytics professional association, right? So here in the US, it's the Insights Association. In Canada, it's CIRQ. In the UK, it's MRS, and so on and so on. And the role that the professional associations can play is really important, because they can support education and content and really be thought leaders like in this space, and talking about how the standard, again, kind of, it's a broken record, but it bears repeating over and over, that the standard wasn't created in a vacuum. It came out of industry. So it's when a new organization comes into the standard and they're like, oh, I got to buy the standard, I'm a little intimidated. But then they read the document is speaking their language. It all should be very familiar. And so I think that, you have this great sort of support network with associations, with companies looking to do that. And then you do have a handful of professional associations like the Insights Association that are very lucky that they have their own certification body. And there are many of those sort of peppered around the globe that have a direct link and can help facilitate that relationship. But the key piece here is that the association stays out of the certification body's business, again, for that awesome, robust, impartial third-party audit. Because we're not looking to sort of, make it easier for someone if they're a member of an association to go get certified. Our certifications, we're accredited, CIRQ is accredited, the Insights Association is not, and that's by design, so that you get those audits that are very reliable. You get results and certificates that are valid, and they're recognized around the globe.
Love that. Absolutely love that. Thank you. So going back to the standard, can you talk us through a little bit the certification process for ISO?
Sure. So in a nutshell, apply. It's really easy. Find a certification body and apply. Like I said, they are all over the globe, especially if you're not in an English-speaking country. You can go to your national standards body, and there will be a list of certification bodies that offer, different certifications. Now, ISO 20252, as we've been mentioning throughout this, is specific to industry. So there aren't as many certification bodies that offer an accredited certificate to ISO 20252, but there are plenty to choose from. So really what starts the process is an application. An application, it doesn't commit a client, at least in the case of CIRQ, doesn't commit a client to anything. What it really allows us is a window into the scope of certification. Where your company is located on the map, how many locations you have, and what kind of services that you provide. And what we do is we sort of go through a very iterative process to whittle down what will ultimately be a certification scope. From that point, really what we do is the client has to go off and then implement the standard. Now, one of the great things about this standard is that without even really trying, most market research companies are about 60 to 70% already compliant because, again, the standard is their standard.
Yeah.
So really what it is a lot of, kind of going through line by line and making sure that, your documents have the requirements listed in there. Like you might have a contract, but it may be missing a couple pieces. The standard doesn't ask you to go and rewrite it, but it does ask you to write it if you don't have one. So it's a lot of just really kind of looking through the standard line by line and understanding the requirements. And the great thing about the standard is if there's something that you do and it's the way that your company does it and it's related to that requirement, that can be the answer. You don't have to, the standard isn't super prescriptive in that way. It kind of gives you requirements like you must have training. How do you do that? This is how we do training. Boom, that's the answer. It doesn't have to be overthought. And I think a lot of folks come to the standard and they're really intimidated. And I'm like, just read the words on the page. It's okay. So once a client goes through implementation, really at that point, we do a pre-assessment. And we get an idea about their documentation. We get an idea about their readiness to go to a full system audit. We do a little gap analysis review based on the results of that review. That kind of triggers either maybe a month or two to go back and do some fine tuning or say, hey, we're ready. Then we'll schedule the audit. Audit time can vary. This is the number one question that I get. How long does it take and how much does it cost? That is a completely subjective question. There's a lot of competing factors. How big is your company? How many people? What kind of business do you do? How complicated is it? And all that good stuff. And me trying to give you an average is like, it's rough because it could be 3 days or it could be 2 weeks. But most of the companies that I work with for an initial audit, they kind of come in at about 4 to 5 days, maybe a little bit less, rarely more. So at least that's something that, an organization kind of wrap its head around like, oh, okay, this is kind of the commitment for the audit. And then once they go through the audit, they get a report and the report will give them a series of findings. We kind of treat it like a pass fail, but we're very understanding. Especially in an initial audit. In an initial audit, we don't expect that everything is going to be fully baked. There might be little pieces here and there that need to be fine-tuned. And we'll treat that like an opportunity for improvement. It's very, very rare. And on my watch, I do not let it happen because I believe it is a giant waste of time and it's just a morale killer. If a client gets all the way to the finish line and then they fail their audit, not on my watch. I would rather spend a lot of time in implementation and getting ready to go to audit so that your audit is a smooth slam dunk. Certification comes within 2 to 3 weeks from the last day of the audit. And then a client goes on a 3-year audit cycle. You have 2 surveillance audits annually. Those are kind of little check-ins. How are things going? How are the improvements from the last audit? All that good stuff. And then year 4 becomes your recertification. So it's a 3-year certification cycle. Year 4 becomes new year 1, and then you start that cycle all over again. So that's pretty much it.
That's brilliant. Thank you. I am going to draw you back to you were talking about kind of the implementing of the standard. So we've got, just let's say hypothetically, we have a company, they're not started yet, and they're thinking, how do I get into this? how do we get into this? What do we need to start?
Sure. So the first step really is go purchase the standard. Typically at an organization, there will be an individual or a small team of individuals who've been tasked with doing this. Go purchase the standard. You can get it from sort of the ISO web store main sort of their main website, or you can get it from your national standards body, especially if you're in a country where you don't speak English, Spain, France, whatever. And then so purchase the standard. The standard isn't prescriptive on how you implement the requirement. So there's a couple of different ways that you can accomplish this. You can do it yourself. Absolutely. There's no rules that say you can't. But for some companies who have a lot on their plate and they're trying to do everything else, they're doing their day jobs and more, maybe hiring a consultant is the way to go. And the consultant can take many forms. It can be an individual who's just helping you. It could be something as formal as working with you guys. We have a couple of clients that are working with Assent, and they're very high praise about, again, having an external person to the organization kind of be their time clock keeper, right? Their milestone keeper, like, hey, this is a deliverable date. And sometimes that's a good thing. And that relationship can be as involved. It can be one time, just the implementation, boom, you're done. Fledge from the nest, it's all yours. Or it can go on for many, many years. And I know clients that have worked with a consultant for 5-6+ years. So it's a really tailorable process. Again, the standard doesn't expressly say to implement the standard, you must do this. You can do it yourself. You can hire an expert. I often tell companies that are coming to this, especially knowing the pressure that we have with the P&G mandate, that they want clients who want to work with them, get this done this year, to have a conversation with a consultant, even if they decide to do it themselves, just to make sure they have all the information in front of them and kind of figure out, like, what's the best way to get this done in the time that we've been given. And yes, it can be a little additional expense, but maybe in the long run, it'll save you a lot of headache and a lot of concern. Are we doing this right? Those questions that play in everybody's mind as you're kind of going through this. So yeah, there's no wrong answer here, but a consultant can be an absolute wonderful thing to get this done, especially, again, if you're on a compressed time schedule.
Yeah, naturally. And obviously, as you said, it could be a slight expense, but also the time element of it.
Absolutely. One of the other things I tell clients all the time when they come to this, like, first off, buy the standard, take a deep breath. And then remember, everybody started where you were at the old Harry Potter line, right? We all started, as like kid magicians. We all started in the same place.
Yeah.
But to remember that you will ultimately get there, but remember that your day job doesn't stop. So think about sort of your resource allocation. And I speak from deep experience on this subject because I am also the accreditation manager for CIRQ. So I handle all the accreditations. So while I'm dealing with clients and audits and bringing new folks on, I've got to worry about requirements that come from our accreditation body and make sure that our accreditations we're on target for our audits. We've done our internal audits. Our documentation looks good. The assessment is good. We've passed our audit. We've cleared all that good stuff. So I get it. I get where everybody is, but it will get better. It always gets better. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. There is a lot going on with it. And having the flexibility of a consultant, whether they dip their tone a little bit or they're all, working with you over the time, it's great.
Right. Yeah, it is.
So can you just discuss how to maintain this education through internal audits with, a consultant like Assent or externals like CIRQ?
Well, again, the standard isn't prescriptive about how you handle once you've achieved certification, right? You've gone through implementation, you've achieved certification. You're like, okay, boom, we are in it now. We're in our 3-year cycle. So there is a requirement for annual internal auditing that should be happening before your external audit. The role of the internal audit is so that you have a little bit more relaxed environment. You can kind of divide and conquer this task, and you can highlight any problems and remediate them before your external audit when they become non-conformances. And the internal audit can be accomplished in a couple of ways. You can train up some individual folks who work at the organization. They can take on this role. You can also continue to engage with a consultant who can then be that external resource, kind of put the organization through its paces and give you effectively like a dry run, like a dress rehearsal, right? This is what your audit is going to be like. But again, it's a little bit more casual. The stakes are a lot lower. If you find something, you can immediately go fix it. You don't have to be like, oh my gosh, we're in an audit. That's a big, huge nonconformance. What does that mean? Do we have, what's the corrective action process look like? All that good stuff. You know, we offer training. I know you guys provide that service as well. There's a number of ways to kind of get that done, but it is a requirement. And it goes hand in hand with the management review within the core of the standard and as well. And effectively, what that means is if you have your internal audit, if you find anything major, you know, something's gone off the rails, you bring that up in your management review, and you know, the idea here is that you're constantly improving. You're reporting to leadership. This is what was happening. This is what we found. This is how we're remediating it, and it's all happening before your annual external audit with your certification provider of choice, CIRQ or otherwise. Yeah, and that's kind of how it works. And again, there's no wrong answer here. The standard is not prescriptive on how this is done. So the internal audit function, internal is a little bit misleading. It can be done internally, but it can also be provided by an external provider.
Yeah, and I think it gives you, as you said, that just that confidence going into your external audit to know,
absolutely,
we've nailed this, we've got this, we've done this already.
Yeah, you find stuff. I mean, I have to go through 2 internal audits every year, and for me, they are a dry run. They're a dress rehearsal. It helps me get all my stuff kind of queued up and ready for, because I try to do, the way I schedule mine for CIRQ is I try to do them about 2 months before the external audit, so that if there's anything major, because again, my day-to-day stuff doesn't stop while just ongoing improvements are happening. I need to make sure that I have plenty of time to go, oh gosh, there's a big thing in the quality manual that I've got to fix. And if I have to fix it one place, you know, I'm fixing it in 10 places. Like it's always, you got to look under all the pebbles in the stream. It's never one thing. I wish it was one thing. It's never one thing. It's like, oh, I fixed that one thing in this document. Oh my gosh. Okay. Now I got to go here. And that's the thing about constant improvement, is that you're always, and you will get there, but it's just, I feel everybody's pain. I do. I feel everybody's pain because I am often there myself.
I love that. Well, thank you so much, Juliana, for joining me on the podcast today.
Quite welcome.
It's been a wonderful episode, and I think it's probably the first of many, I imagine, because there is so much going on in this industry. Yeah, and I would love to have you back on the show to get even more.
Anytime I can be as delightful or as in the weeds with the standard as possible. And I look forward to continuing this conversation. Like I said, we are in a very unique time, having a brand really make a statement about the standard. I think it's just going to be this year, and the next few are going to be, there's going to be a lot of disruption, but in a really good way, like a really good way, that the standard has been for many, many years. Like, oh, how do we get the word out? Awareness. And now we have this amazing opportunity. And I think we should just do everything that we can to communicate out to clients that, you can do this, you can get done, and there's plenty of resources to help you get to where you need to be.
That's fantastic. Thank you. And thank you everybody to listening to the show. I hope you've enjoyed it. Please make sure you rate, review, and subscribe. It really, really does help the podcast. And I'll be back with an episode in a couple of weeks.